There is certainly only one Myles Garrett. There's a difference between being a good player and being a great player. You can't trade players like Myles Garrett. Those are the type of players that you just do not trade, and the Browns did that anyway. Now the narrative has already started, y'all. It's anybody but Shedeur Sanders.
If I were the Cleveland Browns fans, this is what I would do. I'd start watching a lot of the University of Texas. That's what I would do. I would keep an eye on the University of Texas because they have a quarterback by the name of Manning down there. And their owner, Jimmy Haslam, very tight with the Manning family. And I think this sets them up to go make the move if they have to next year.
Draft capital,
to go get Arch Manning. And I think
This is getting out of control fast, and people are calling it what it is: pure noise spreading like wildfire. Some media voices are now pushing the wild idea that Arch Manning is set to replace Shedeur Sanders after the Myles Garrett trade. But where is that coming from? Buying this story about Arch Manning replacing Shedeur? Or is this just another media fantasy being forced on fans? Stick around, because now we are about to break down what actually happened behind all this noise. The timing of this narrative tells you everything. Shedeur has barely had a chance to prove himself, and already some Cleveland media voices are looking past him and talking about Arch Manning. Think about how ridiculous that is. The season is not over. The quarterback battle is not settled. Shedeur has not even taken meaningful NFL snaps. Yet somehow the conversation has already jumped to a player who is not even on the Browns roster. That is not analysis. That is wishful thinking. It feels like certain people have spent so much time doubting Shedeur that they simply cannot accept the possibility that he might succeed. Every time he gets praise, they move the goalposts. Every time he shows growth, they change the subject. Now they are talking about Arch Manning. Tomorrow it will be somebody else. The target keeps moving because some people never wanted Shedeur to win in the first place. What makes this even more outrageous is how quickly these same voices are ready to dream about a future quarterback while ignoring the one standing right in front of them. Arch Manning is a talented prospect. Nobody is denying that. But why is his name suddenly being used as a weapon against Shedeur Sanders? Why are fans being told to watch Texas football instead of paying attention to what is happening in Cleveland right now? The answer is obvious. The media knows Shedeur creates attention. They know his name drives debate. They know every negative story about him spreads fast. So instead of waiting for real results on the field, they rush to create another storyline. It is the same pattern over and over again. Doubt Shedeur. Question Shedeur, replace Shedeur, then act surprised when people call out the agenda. At some point, fans have to ask a simple question. Why are these people so desperate to move on from a player who has not even been given a fair opportunity? And here is the truly absurd part. The Browns traded a superstar defender, and somehow the conversation turned into another attack on Shedeur Sanders. How does that even happen? A major franchise decision gets made, and within minutes, some people are already using it to build fantasy stories about the next quarterback after the next quarterback. That is how far this has gone. Instead of talking about what Shedeur is doing in meetings, on the practice field, or inside the quarterback room, they are skipping years into the future searching for reasons to push him aside. It looks less like football analysis and more like panic. Because if Shedeur starts proving people wrong, a lot of loud voices are going to have some serious explaining to do. And that is what really scares them. Not that Shedeur might fail, but that he might succeed after months of criticism, doubt, and disrespect. That would expose just how wrong many of these so-called experts have been from the very beginning.
No, they would not win the trade. I had to do my homework, dig up some reports to show you guys that I had created last year of Arch Manning. 4 of 13, 4 of 14, 58 yards in the first half. The man actually sucked. Look what he did against UTEP. This is not like he played against some SEC football team. It was bad for Arch Manning. Arch Manning was not.
The funniest part of this entire conversation is how some people keep acting like Arch Manning is already a guaranteed superstar. Based on what? Based on a famous last name? Based on hype? Because when you strip away the headlines and look at the actual football discussion, the picture is not nearly as perfect as his biggest supporters want fans to believe. Yet these same people are ready to push Shedeur out of the conversation before he even gets a real chance. That is the double standard nobody wants to talk about. Every incomplete pass from Shedeur becomes breaking news. Every mistake gets magnified. Every rumor gets repeated for weeks. But when it comes to Arch Manning, Suddenly everyone wants patience. Suddenly everyone wants context. Suddenly everyone wants excuses. That is what makes this whole narrative look so ridiculous. If Shedeur were putting up the kind of performance Arch Manning, some people act like the rules do not apply. What makes this even more absurd is the rush to crown a player before he has actually earned that crown. Football is not won by family names. Football is not won by media hype. Football is not won by people sitting in studios making predictions. It is won on the field. That is where the truth always comes out. And right now, some of the loudest voices talking about Arch Manning replacing Shedeur Sanders sound more interested in fantasy stories than reality. They keep selling tomorrow while ignoring today. They keep talking about what might happen years from now while refusing to acknowledge what is happening in front of them. That is why fans are getting tired of these takes. They sound forced. They sound desperate. They sound like people searching for any possible alternative to admitting that Shedeur belongs in the conversation. Every week there is a new favorite. Every week there is a new savior. Every week there is another excuse to move the spotlight away from Shedeur. And that brings us to the truly embarrassing part of this debate. If Arch Manning is so clearly the answer, then why do his supporters spend so much time attacking Shedeur instead of proving their case with football? Why is the discussion always about replacing Shedeur? Why is it never about letting both players be judged fairly? The answer is simple. Some people are terrified of the possibility that Shedeur succeeds. Because if he does, years of criticism start falling apart. Years of hot takes start looking foolish. Years of doubt start looking personal instead of professional. That is why this conversation keeps getting louder.
I want to talk to you about another young player, and that's Arch Manning, who came into this with so much hype. Maybe it was unfair, and I feel like you're the perfect person to talk to when there's so much hype and so much focus. What advice would you give Arch right now if you were talking to him?
Don't placate to others. Be you, and be the best you that you could possibly be. Quit trying to be whatever it is for them, and not that he's doing that, but that's what I told my sons, that's what I tell my team, that's what I tell everybody. There's so many people trying to pretend and trick-or-treat right here and ain't even Halloween and be something that they're not. The way you succeed in life is to be the best you that you could possibly be consistently.
What stood out about that answer was not what Coach Prime said. It was what he did not say. He was asked about hype. He was asked about pressure. He was asked about a young quarterback carrying a famous name. And his message was simple. Stop worrying about what other people want you to be. Stop chasing outside expectations. Just be yourself. Now, whether he meant it this way or not, a lot of people are going to hear that and think it sounds like a warning shot. Because right now, Arch Manning is carrying a mountain of expectations before he has actually proven much at the highest level. The name is huge. The attention is huge. The headlines are huge. But football does not care about headlines. Football does not care about family history. Football only cares about results. That is why this answer hits harder than people realize. Coach Prime has spent years watching players get buried under hype. His message sounded like a reminder that fame alone does not win games. And this is where the comparison to Shedeur Sanders becomes impossible to ignore. Look at how differently these two players are treated. Shedeur gets picked apart for everything. Every throw gets judged. Every interview gets analyzed. Every mistake becomes a national discussion. Yet when it comes to Arch Manning, so many people want to talk about potential instead of production. They want to talk about what he might become instead of what he is right now. That is exactly why Coach Prime's words feel so important. The message was clear. Do not live through other people's expectations. Earn your own identity. Build your own story. If you are constantly being introduced as the next great thing before you have actually done it, that can become a problem. A serious problem. And whether some fans like it or not, Shedeur has spent years dealing with pressure that most young quarterbacks could never handle. He has been criticized, questioned, doubted, yet he kept showing up and competing anyway. That sounds like Coach Prime is pushing back against the entire hype machine surrounding Arch Manning. Not attacking him, not disrespecting him, but reminding everyone that nobody gets a free pass in football. Nobody wins because of a last name. Nobody becomes a star because reporters say so. You have to prove it. Week after week, game after game. That is why all this talk about replacing Shedeur with Arch Manning feels so premature. One player is constantly being told he is not good enough despite everything he has accomplished. The other is constantly being told greatness is waiting for him around the corner. That contrast is hard to ignore. And if Coach Prime's message means anything, it is that eventually the noise has to stop. The hype has to stop. The excuses have to stop. Then the truth comes out. And when that day arrives, reputations will not matter. Only performance will.
The Cleveland media divided the fan base on this quarterback battle.
That's a
They
real
the
good question.
one that did it. Cleveland media.
That's a real good question. I feel like it's definitely divided. You have one half that likes Shedeur, and then you have one half that hates Shedeur. I honestly, and I think G. Bush spoke about this before, they really don't want Shedeur nor Deshaun Watson at the end of the day. I could possibly see them trying to cancel out the whole entire, both of them if they had that opportunity. And then, because they really want, I don't see why, but they really want Arch Manning at the end of the day. And so, I've never been good with math, but I can see, what do they call it? Proxy elimination or something like that, where they can kind of get both of them out of there.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they're really trying to do is create more drama. Create more drama at the end of the day. But the only way to cure that is to win games. And I think Ty said that too.
The most fascinating part of this entire quarterback debate is how fast the conversation stopped being about football and started becoming about emotions. That is what many fans have noticed. Instead of asking who is making the best reads, who is improving, and who gives the team the best chance to win, some people immediately jumped into camps. One side wants to see what Shedeur Sanders can do. The other side seems determined to reject him before he even gets a real opportunity. That is why so many fans feel frustrated. The discussion should be about performance. It should be about competition. It should be about earning the job. Instead, every week there is another rumor, another distraction, another theory about who might replace him someday. It is almost like certain voices are more interested in talking about future quarterbacks than the quarterback who is actually in the building right now. That is why so many people are questioning the coverage. Because if Shedeur is really not the answer, let the football prove it. Why the non-stop effort to skip ahead to the next name on the list? And then comes the truly unbelievable part. Every time the conversation starts moving towards Shedeur's development, somebody suddenly brings up Arch Manning. Why? What has Arch Manning done for the Cleveland Browns? Nothing. He is not on the roster. He is not in the quarterback room. He is not competing in camp. Yet his name keeps getting thrown into these discussions as if he is already the solution to every problem. That is what makes the narrative look so weak. It feels less like confidence and more like wishful thinking. What really exposes this whole situation is how desperate some critics seem to be for drama. A normal quarterback battle should be simple. Let the players compete. Let the coaches evaluate. Let the games decide. But that would not create headlines. That would not create arguments. That would not create clicks. So instead, the noise keeps growing. New rumors appear. New theories appear. New replacement plans appear. And somehow Shedeur always ends up at the center of it. That should tell you everything. If these people were truly confident in their position, they would not need endless backup plans and future fantasies. They would just let the competition play out. But instead, they keep looking for the next name, the next prospect, the next storyline, the next escape route. That is why many fans are pushing back. They are tired of hearing about what might happen years from now. They want to know what is happening today. They want to see the competition decided on the field. And if Shedeur starts winning games, a lot of the loudest critics are going to have a very difficult time explaining why they spent so much energy looking everywhere except at the players standing right in front of them. So in the end, this was never just about a quarterback battle. It was about a media narrative that many fans believe was designed to crush most: competing. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that subscribe button and join the conversation. Do you think the media has been unfair to Shedeur, or is the criticism justified? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.